y'all, what is going on? What is going on? Today, we are going to do a quick little recap of what is going on of week 1 of the trial of Diddy. Okay. I must say the first week started off exactly what we thought. It started off crazy. But we're going to get into it. So, just to remind everybody, because I feel like it's getting lost in translation as to what is Diddy actually being charged with. So, he's being charged with trafficking by force, conspiracy of racketeering, which is where the RICO comes in, and he is being accused of transporting to engage in that. So I'm reading these, and just by the way, these charges were brought by the state attorney's office when the Cassie lawsuit came out, when the Little Rod lawsuit came out. That's when the state decided to pick up the charges, because from what they're describing, it sounds like he is engaging in criminal acts. So let me just remind everyone, and I want to say this without people being up in arms, like, I'm just going to say this just for a disclaimer, okay? I am not on Diddy's side, and I am not trying to victim shame Cassie. I just want to state what happened in court and let you guys ponder on what I tell you. Because it's a lot of back and forth. Oh, they're trying to make Cassie look this way. They're trying to look Diddy make that way. But at the end of the day, this is a court case. And the purpose of court is to focus on the facts. And that's exactly what I intend to do. So with that being said, he is not being charged with domestic violence, okay? He's not being charged with domestic violence. Therefore, any allegations that anyone makes that goes towards domestic violence, and I'm not trying to say this and sound harsh, but for the court's sake, for the case's sake, that does not matter. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but it does not matter. The domestic violence does not matter when it comes to the charges that he's actually being charged with. He's not being charged with assault. He's not being charged with physical, anything like that. He's literally being charged with sex crimes and racketeering and conspiracy. That's it. That is it. Oh, and transporting of the ladies of the night. Okay? So the first day, it was basically, the opening statements where they're saying what they believe, what the defense, it's all about trying to get the jury to believe whatever they tell them. So opening statements, day 1, they did have a witness, which was an escort that actually partook in the one of the freak-offs. He said that he was under the impression that it was a bachelor party, because let's keep in mind, and I'm going to probably repeat a lot of things, but let's keep in mind, when these escorts were sought out, it was Cassie that was doing that part. Like, she was the one contacting the escort. She was the one in charge of the money handling. The contact was made with Cassie. They didn't meet Diddy until they got there. So this escort was under the impression that she was hiring him for a bachelorette party. He gets to the hotel, and Diddy's in there with a robe on and a bandana around his face, and I don't know. So they did what they did. I don't know. It was unclear if it was in the midst of that, before, after, but at some point of this whole situation, the escort heard Diddy slap Cassie, and he was turned off by it. He told her, you need to get out of this situation, and that was that. He didn't alert any authorities. He didn't alert the security of the hotel. He basically just told her, you need to get out this situation, and he did. The other witness was the security guard, well, the security officer who is now an actual police officer but wasn't at the time. He was a witness, and this was in the 2016 incident that everybody's seen on TV. The hotel where he, did what he did in the hallway. I'm going to tell you now, if you want to see, there is the video that CNN released originally, and then there is the 15-minute long full video that you guys can look up online. I'm not going to replay that. I don't want to see it. I didn't want to see it when it came out. So yeah, you guys can go watch that if you will. But this is the security guard that was there. Actually, when you see the clip where Cassie is on the phone, she is calling security. The security comes upstairs, talks to Diddy, says he was looking distressed and crazy on the couch in the hallway with a towel on. Then he says that he's telling Diddy, oh, Cassie, she's going to leave. She wants to leave. She's going to leave. Diddy notices the employee is recording him while they're having this interaction. Allegedly, Diddy takes the phone from the employee. The security guard pushes Diddy up against the wall to take the phone back. And then Diddy offers him $100,000 not to tell anybody. Now, he wasn't very clear on whether he took the money or not. However, if you are a security officer of any establishment, if there's any crime committed, it is your duty to alert the actual police. That's the main thing. That's why you're there. To stop the situation, and if it's something that's escalated, alert the police. So he did not alert the police. It's very unclear why, but he didn't alert the police. So that leaves minds to wonder, well, did you take the money then? Because remember, a lot of these transactions are in cash. So it's not like there's really a way to have actual proof that you were or weren't paid. But you said you weren't, and you said that you didn't alert the police. So that's weird. All right, so now we are going to get into Cassie's testimony. So she actually says that within like the first year of their relationship, Diddy brought this idea to her of where they would explore with other partners, as you could say. Basically, from the way it was described, he brought her to an sex party, and at first he would watch her do things with other women, and then it turned into them hiring escorts to have her do things with other men, and then he would watch. So she actually described it as, once it got to the point of him watching, I guess she would have to describe what the man looked like, and they would do stuff to themselves and each other. It was just like a lot of weird. It was weird. So she was under the impression that at first she thought it was going to be like a one-time thing, that, they were just exploring and figuring each other's sex lives out and all this stuff. She thought it was going to be a one-time thing, basically. But then it turned into every week, possibly multiple times a week this was going on. I am going to warn you guys, some of this stuff is graphic. This is why I'm not really going to go into full detail as far as the whole Cassie's testimony thing, because it is very graphic. She goes on to say that basically there was an incident where he wanted the man to pee in her mouth and on her, and how the escorts needed permission to finish, if you catch my drift. And if they finished without his permission, then they wouldn't be paid. But he also required that when they do finish, that Cassie was to rub the stuff on him, on his chest and whatever. Mm, 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 mm. Like I said, I'm just going through the quick facts, and then we're going to talk about it. I just want to... So basically, she did say that she was heavily on drugs, heavily on alcohol. X, Molly the maid, something called G to the H to the B. I don't know what it is. She did say that she preferred something that started with the K. But Diddy didn't like it because it messed up the vibe, whatever that means. So basically, Cassie says that she wanted this experience to be like a husband and wife exploring, doing things. She wanted to make him happy. Like, she basically insinuates that she only did this to make him happy. She only did this because he liked it, and this is what he wanted to do. And she didn't want him to do that stuff with another woman. She basically, even though they wasn't married, she wanted it, like, she didn't want it to feel like she was just helping him live out his fantasies. She wanted to be a more together thing. So even though, like I said a million times, he's not being charged with domestic violence, this is a recap on what happened. So I'm just going to quickly go through that trigger warning because that's why I'm not getting into detail. So basically, she says that, there was numerous occasions where he abused her. There was an instance where 2 of her friends had to literally jump this man just to get him off of her. And then she was forced to go to a hotel literally right after that for a freak off. And there was a man by the name of Dave there. She said that she was high on the G to the H to the B. And I guess it has some type of effect where it makes you pass out eventually. Because she said she passed out in the tub. She woke up, she looked over, and Diddy and Dave was diddling together. Like, what the fuck? Again, I'm just reading. She said they was doing it together, y'all. I don't know. So with all, like, she's saying that this is going on multiple times a week, if not once a week. I don't know how many times a week, but she said it was a weekly thing. So obviously she had some side effects to that. But she said there was multiple UTIs. She had sores in her mouth and her tongue, and she had to use IV drips just to rehydrate. She did say that the longest freak off was like 4 days. So think about it, when you're constantly drinking, you're constantly taking drugs, you're not sleeping, you're not eating. Yeah, you're going to get dehydrated, you're going to be tired. I'm sure you're going to be sore. I'm sure you're going to be sore. So yeah, I'm sure it took a huge toll on her body, on her mental, her everything. So she ends her portion, well, not her portion, but she ends her testimony with, she tried to break it off with him. Well, when she decided to break it off with him in 2018, he ended up R-wording her on the couch in their living room. And that was pretty much that. She got out, that was that. She did mention there was a situation where she was doing Honey 3 over in South Africa, and I guess Michael B. Jordan was over there for whatever, but they weren't together. They were just over there at the same time. And apparently she seen that Diddy was at an event with some lady named Gina. She got upset, and she had the thought of, of jealousy. Like, she was like, I don't want him to be with her. I don't want him to do the things that we do together with her. And then at the same time, Diddy's accusing her of sleeping with Michael B. Jordan and all this stuff. So it seemed like on her end, like, even though all this stuff was going on with the abuse, with the unwanted sex situations, even though, like, it was to this point, she still was jealous. she still didn't want him to be with another woman. So it kind of, like, for an outsider, it would be confusing a little bit, because it's like, you know, if you're in this dire, like, it sounds like he's literally beating her to a pulp. Like, it sounds like he's really going in on this girl. So, like, it's hard to understand, like, well, if he's doing all that, why are you worried about him being with another girl? Wouldn't you look at that as, okay, well, since he's paying this girl all the attention, this is my time to slide right the fuck up on out of here. But again, I'm just speculating. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying. And I'm not, like, again, I'm not trying to take away from anything she went through, but I'm just wondering, if you were battered so badly and you had to sit here and have multiple sex partners, multiple, you know, drugs and alcohol and all this going on, you're living this crazy life. At this point, it's like, you've been with the man for 10 years. If your career didn't take off by now with him, it's not taking off. So, you know, why are you worried about him being with another girl? That should be the least. You're over here shooting a movie. And you're, I don't know. So, we're going to get to the cross-examination. Cross-examination is when the defense now wants to interrogate the witness and ask them questions, if nobody knew what that was. So, let me tell y'all, this is where things, like, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you might see bits and pieces on the internet of people talking and maybe little news clippings here, there, whatever. But this is when you will notice that social media took a complete turn when the cross-examination happened. And I'm going to tell you why. The defense read texts and emails and in the text messages, it sounds like Cassie was a willing participant. Now, when she's describing all these events in her testimony, it sounds like she was down for it the one time, and then that was that. Like, afterwards, she didn't like it. She was only doing it because he wanted to. That's how she made it sound. But when you read the text messages, it's not just sounds like, but it's like you was with it too. Like, you was down with it too, because not only are their text messages saying that you enjoyed it, saying that you was ready for one right now, saying that you love to have freak offs. It didn't. Some of the text messages made it seem like you were initiating him, like, and again, I'm just painting a picture. I am just speculating. I'm just talking. But when I'm reading them, and then I'm like thinking back and forth, like, okay, it's like this man was probably cutting a record or whatever he does, producing. I'm going to say producing, because me personally, I think Diddy provided the space. Y'all can hate me if you want, but I feel like he provided the space. He provided what the people needed. And then maybe he listened to the final product, or he'll listen, like, you know, while the person is there, he'll listen, whatever. But I personally don't feel like he produced. I don't feel like he did as much as people try to make it seem. When we're talking about producers, I don't put him in a Timberland or Pharrell or Kanye West. I don't put him. He is the nigga dancing in the videos. He is the guy that's just there. Like, you had the money, you had it. Like, you knew people knew you, so you knew you had the money to pay this producer. Like, remember, there was a whole, what was the thing with Stevie J, the hit makers, the hitmen. So you had men doing all the work and you were just providing the space and the money to do it. That's how I feel. So I know that was a tangent. I'm sitting here thinking like, damn. So the way it sounds like, and I'm not saying every single occasion, but the times where it seems like she's initiating the whole thing, it could be possible that this man was in the studio or with one of his kids or doing just something else, just going to the gym, eating a freaking sandwich, and he gets a text, so you trying to freak off tonight? Like, that's what I'm thinking, because it's like the way it's coming off in these text messages. It's like some of the situations he initiated, some of the situations she initiated, but the fact of the matter is, she wanted to do that. Now, I am specifically talking about the SEX encounters. I'm not saying she wanted to get hit on or she wanted to get abused. No, what woman really wants that? A crazy one. But no sane woman wants that. But when it comes down to these SEX encounters, yes, I feel like there were a lot of the instances where she was down with it. In the text messages and the emails prove it. She even says, I love doing them when we both want to do them. Which means there have been times where you want to do them too. You might not have wanted it to last 4 days, but you still wanted to do it. And I bring back the fact of, when it comes to the court side of it, when it comes to the jury, it's going to be hard to decipher when she didn't want it. She's the one picking out the escort. The only request this dude over here has is make sure they got a BBC. And if you don't know what that is, it's not the television network. Look it up. He just wants to make sure they got a BBC. That's all he cares about. That's all he wants. As far as looks, as far as anything else, when it comes down to the man, it seems like she had a say. So when you're talking about being forced to do something, and I'm talking about as a whole, because let's face it, as a whole, with the whole situation, she was not forced the whole entire time. There maybe have been a day where she wanted to rest, he wanted to do it, and maybe he threatened to blackmail her with the videos. And that's another thing I'm going to get to. There are text messages in there that say, oh man, forgot the tablet. So she knew she was being recorded with this stuff. And I'm just giving it to y'all real. I know there are plenty of women watching this right now that when a man asks them, oh, send me a nude, or, oh, we should record ourselves, the first thought she thinks is she don't want nobody to see it. Now, the man can tell you until he's blue in the face, I ain't gonna show nobody. I ain't gonna tell nobody. It's just between me and you. She's still gonna think, what if this gets out? So when you decide to continue on to send that nude, press record, or whatever, you're taking the risk of not only is he going to send it out purposely, what if he loses his phone? What if you're like, okay, well, I'll put it in my phone. What if you lose your phone? What if your kid is playing on your phone and accidentally uploads it to the internet? What if he's into some type of tech stuff and into it with some people or not into it with some people and the shit gets hacked? There's always a possibility of this getting out if you do it. So I'm not blaming her, and I'm not saying she's wrong for trying to trust her man and do things, trying to spice it up or whatever. I'm not saying she's wrong, but what I am saying is these are the types of things you have in your mind before you do it. So she knew that this, on top of that, you're with a famous person, and on top of that, you're a famous person as well. So a freaking fingernail is detrimental. Like, you could sell a fingernail if you wanted to. So it's like, you should know the position that you're in, the situation that you're in, it's a possibility. So it should have also came into her mind What if he does get mad at me and threaten to, leak these videos or whatever? So it's like you knew you were being recorded, but yet you're turning and saying, oh, well, if I didn't do this, he would threaten to put the videos out. Or if I didn't do that, like, that should have always been a thought. And that's just my opinion. I'm not, like I said, I'm not blaming her or anything, but that's just my opinion. Like, that's always a thought. That should always be a thing you should think about, whether he puts the tape out or not. Like, you already took the risk once you... So that is the risk that you are willing to take, especially, like, when you know it's happening. And I feel like when the lawsuit came out, when all this stuff started coming out, everybody was under the impression that this man had secret cameras. And I'm not saying he doesn't. He probably does. But when it comes to Cassie, I'm talking about, they're making it seem like this was like a whole secret thing. Oh, he has tapes on her, this, that, and the third. Like, she knew she was being recorded. And from the text messages and the emails, it sounded like she liked being recorded because she was upset at the fact that she forgot the tablet. Now, once again, I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong, who's lying, who's not. I'm just reiterating what happened in the trial. I'm just recapping what happened and what's coming out, not only with what the media is saying, but with the direct transcripts of the case that are readily available online if you want to verify or if you want to read into detail exactly everything that happened. But me personally, I was reading, when I'm doing my research and seeing what's going on in the court, I'm sitting here reading, like, I don't even feel comfortable saying this stuff, like, into detail. I don't even feel comfortable saying it. I don't even think it's allowed for me to say half of that stuff on YouTube anyway. So, yeah, I'm going to just make it a quick wrap up. But the fact of the matter is, yes, Cassie did go through a lot when it came with him. And I will say some stuff she put herself through. That's how I feel. I feel like if you say out of your mouth that you were worried about him being with another woman, but yet this man is doing you so dirty that we can't even imagine. Like I said, I don't understand the logic of why you care if he's talking to another woman. I don't understand that. Because, like I said, that would be an out for you. Okay, he's worried about her. Let me, pack my bags while he's over there with her and get the hell up out of here. That's what I'm thinking. Because I'm sitting here thinking of stories that I've heard of people going through this situation. And it's like, oh, I had no way out. There was nothing I could do. I was scared. And I get that. Like, I get the fact of being scared and of leaving and all this other stuff. But like I said, what I just don't understand is if you see that and I'm not saying it's right to put the whole thing on another woman, but at the end of the day, you got to think of your safety. So it's like, if he's deviating over here, that's your out to deviate that way and leave. Like, I just didn't understand that, me personally. And like I said, regardless of how long she stayed, regardless of what she went through, I feel like no woman deserves for a man to put their hands on them, regardless of the situation. So there is not one time where I'm like, oh yeah, she deserved her. No, not at all. Like, that's wrong. But like I said before, everyone is up in arms about the whole DV, but he's not being charged with that. He's not being charged with that at all. I just want to know what her whole logic in this whole situation is. Because think about this, guys. If when she filed the lawsuit, right? The only reason why this lawsuit came to the public eye is because when it was brought to Diddy originally, he refused to acknowledge it. He refused to do anything, which is what brought forth the lawsuit to the public. And you notice, as soon, like literally day one, that lawsuit hit the internet, not only did he apologize, he paid her $20 million. So that makes me think, what if he would have just paid her originally? Paid her off, she's done with, that's that. Because you gotta understand, there are, I'm sure, so many lawsuits that Diddy has to pay in the past, present and future, who knows? But who's to say there aren't so many lawsuits that this man has already paid people that we've never heard anything about? Because it happens. That's the whole purpose. The celebrities that actually care about their image, care about their brand, care about their money, they, as soon as the lawsuit comes, and if they think, first of all, if they know they did it, they're like, yeah, let me pay this and get this out the way before anybody finds out about it. So, because really, if Diddy was smart, and again, I'm not saying he should have, but I'm just saying, you got to play devil's advocate here. If Diddy was smart, when that lawsuit first hit his desk, when the lawyer called and said, hey, she's suing you, she's saying this, that, and the third, the smartest thing he could have did, he could have paid it right then and there and made her sign an NDA. We would have never heard about this. We would have never, I mean, yeah, we would have heard whispers and stuff, but she would have never came out the way she did. So that's why people are like, oh, was she just doing it for money? I mean, obviously she was just doing it for money, because in my humble opinion, whether she moved on or not, obviously this still affects her. This still affected her. So it's like, if you really felt so strongly about the whole situation, I personally feel like you should have pressed criminal charges in the first place. You should have pressed criminal charges initially. You had the proof. You had messages. You had pictures. You had all the evidence. And along with the, domestic violence or whatever, you could have added all this other stuff on. But you went lawsuit first. You went money first. And like I said, if he would have been on top of it and just paid you, because he ended up paying you anyway. So it's not like, oh, he felt like he didn't do anything wrong. He felt like this, he felt like that. You can't even say that, because he ended up paying her anyway. So had he had just paid you and made you sign an NDA, we wouldn't be hearing about this. And then, really and truly, when the Lil Rod stuff came out, that would have just been a lawsuit. That would have just been some, who is this guy? What is he talking about? Like, nobody would have believed him. But because that lawsuit with Cassie came out, even though he paid, the lawsuit came out, Lil Rod's lawsuit came out, and now the state is looking like, hold on a second. They're talking about having people come out of state for SCX purposes. They're having people move around here, drugs. Then they raided his home. Super soakers everywhere. And the problem with the whole thing with that's not even being mentioned at all. That's why I'm wondering, like, what was the state's purpose of doing this? Because you didn't even try to get him on none of the super soakers that he had. You are, I mean, I get, SCX trafficking is important and everything, but it's like, I just don't understand why this wasn't brought as a whole. Because those were super soakers with the serial number scratched off. I mean, maybe, there was an elaborate lie saying, he has security working in there. He has people in and out. There's no proof that they're his. Okay. I don't know. But that's really most of the things that you really need to know about when it came to week 1. From my understanding, this is 8 weeks of this. I will most likely do 1 video a week about the whole week recap, because when I tell you guys, it is a lot. It is a lot. So many things every single day. Like, literally, my phone is going off with notifications about this. This is starting week 2. They're starting week 2 off on a bad note, if you ask me. I did look at a couple updates. I've seen that Dawn from Diddy Quin was a witness, and I really don't know. The only thing from what I've seen so far, the only thing she is a witness of is, once again, DV to Cassie. I know I've seen, I briefly read her lawsuit, because she got a lawsuit. This is what I'm saying. She got a lawsuit on him now too. She's saying that she was experiencing basically being overworked, and it just bull to me, honestly. And I don't even mean to be like that, but it's like, girl, what are you trying to do? I seen you do an interview like a few months ago about this whole situation. You talked about, you know, your experience working there. And from my understanding, it kind of sounded like he wasn't paying too much attention to you, in a sense, because you had a husband and he couldn't do nothing with you. So basically he focuses attention more on D Woods, and she's not saying too much. I mean, from my understanding, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like so far all Dawn's going to talk about is what she's seen Cassie do. She's going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that has literally nothing to do with the case. Once again, like, you're saying something that he's not being charged with. Okay, granted, you've seen him do whatever he did to Cassie. Did you see him hire any escorts? Did you see him use any money from the record label to buy an escort? Because at this point, unless it's like, you know, in the fine print, they're really like, they're talking about the drugs and stuff, but it's like they're trying, like the prosecutor, they're saying it in a way that he was, you know, putting it, Bill Cosby and these people, you know. Then the defense is saying, you know, it was a party thing, that, you know, he's a celebrity, that's what they do, blah blah blah. Like, it's kind of hard to tell if they're as focused on the substances as they should be, because in my opinion, because the escorts were paid with cash, it's going to be hard to have concrete evidence, because once again, everything that they're saying right now is circumstantial, other than what's said in those text messages. The text messages are the one solid thing that they have. Everything else is speculation, hearsay, and basically what this, like, it's just talk. It's not, I have you on camera giving this man an envelope. I have camera footage of this man entering the hotel. I have footage, or I have a document, or I have it's anything. Like, there is all of this is circumstantial evidence. If you look at it, like, speculation. And I'm saying that in a bad way, because it's like, you guys want to nail this guy and you don't have really much to stand on. Most of the talk is about stuff he's not being charged with. And that's confusing the jury. Because let me explain. I went to school for a little bit, so I know a little bit about how the things work with the jury. The jury's going to sit through all this. They're going to hear a whole bunch of domestic violence. They're already confused, because at one point they're being told that Cassie was forced to do this stuff. And then they're saying that she sometimes she wanted to do it, sometimes she didn't. But either way, she was down for the cause for the SEX. That's how it's looking. They're going to go back and deliberate when all this is over. And I feel like the main thing that's going to stick out in these people's minds is Cassie. Like, I cannot wait to see who else they call on the stand, because I know I heard something about a personal assistant and this person and that person. And again, it just makes me wonder, are you guys going to get up here and talk more about domestic violence? Are you going to talk about anything that relates to the charge that he's being charged with? Because if not, when the jury goes back to deliberate, they're going to get questions. And those questions have to be yes for him to get charged with it. Like, Did anything you hear today apply to racketeering? And it's going to be what racketeering consists of. Does anything you heard match up with that? If they say no, can't charge them for racketeering. If they can't convince, and I'm not even going to say prove at this point, because it's not about even truth. It's about what you can convince them. So if you can convince them that those escorts were paid and that they wasn't just somebody that they met, because think about this, and I wanted to quickly touch on this just so we can get some clarity here. A swinger is when two couples engage with two other couples at the same time. Swapping, swinging, switching. That's what a swinger is. When it's a couple and one other person, that is a threesome. When it is a couple having sex with multiple people at the same time, that is okay? So I don't understand why they're trying to make it seem like he was a swinger. They're not swingers. That's not what that is. Unless they were having encounters with couples every single time, it was he's doing it with this one, she's doing it that one, then it is not swingers. So let's get that out the way. If she was accepting doing this majority of the time, if they are conflicted with deciding whether or not it was consent, which sometimes it looks like she's saying it wasn't consent, but then she's saying to him that she's consenting, that is going to take away the force. That is going to take away the hiring people of the night. That takes that away too. So it's like, this is why people are getting so upset when it comes to sticking to the charges. Because the fact of the matter is, when it's all said and done and they go back in that room and nothing they said in court the whole time applies to the questions they're being asked to properly charge them, find them guilty, he's gonna get out. And this is what I was saying before. Like, don't get me wrong. When Cassie came, when they said she was testifying, I was a little like, damn, maybe they got him now, maybe. But now seeing how it played out, I really think Cassie's testimony did more harm than it was supposed to do good. I really believe that. Like, it kind of derailed everything. It kind of took the focus off of what he's actually being charged with. And like I said, there is no proof that he used his record label to commit any crimes. There is no proof solidly that these were escorts and not people that they came across. Because it's not illegal to be a freak. It's not illegal to go to a club and see some guy and say, hey, you want to come home with my girl, and make a thing of it every week. That's not a crime, especially if they're all consenting to do it. They have to prove that it was an escort to me. Like, that's how I feel, because you got to understand the way this wicked world works. If they don't like him, again, they could be mad about the whole domestic violence thing. Like, the one escort said that he heard him slap Cassie. So they could be like on some revengeful type thing. Like, you know what? Even though he didn't pay, like, or it could have been something as simple as this. Didn't 50 Cent say that he liked to take people shopping? It could have been as simple as, maybe Diddy didn't see it as, I'm paying you for this. This person could have been like, oh, this is Diddy. He wants me to do what? All right, cool, I'm down. And it could have been a gift, because technically, if it's given as a gift, it's not a form of payment, that does not count. But because, he's feeling bad for the woman and he did all this stuff to her. I had to witness this. I'm doing all this weird stuff. I feel bad. You know what? I'm going to say that he paid me to do this and say that he solicited sex. Because this is my thing here. If you are an escort, at some point it's like your privacy is not a thing. I'm sorry, privacy is not a thing because you have to put it out there that you're doing it. If there's a whole laptop set up, I'm pretty sure you see it. So if you walk in and you see something that you don't want to do, you walk out. You're not entitled to stay here. So I'm trying to figure out, how is he soliciting by force? If these people are choosing to, do this stuff. They're choosing to engage. I don't know, y'all. Like I said, I am going to accept the fact that there are going to be some people that don't agree with what I say. And I'm okay with that because we all are entitled to our opinion. And all I'm doing is telling you what happened in court, and I'm telling you my opinion. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Do I feel like Cassie went through some fucked up shit? Yes, I do. Do I feel like she is a victim? Yes, I do. She is a victim. She is a victim of domestic violence. That's what she's a victim of. Were there times that she didn't want to? Maybe she was, like I said, she was tired, whatever. She didn't want to engage in, intercourse that day or whatever. Yeah. Has there been times where he might have, made her do it? Yeah. I do. But I personally think this was into it. You see what I'm saying? This is after you done did it for a year and a half straight. I feel like this is after you, like, I will go out on a limb and say maybe a lot of the nasty stuff, like, was a little bit later, but the gist of the whole thing of you doing it with a man and him watching you, like I said, from your text messages, which you said, yeah, I said that. You agreed. Those were text messages. They wasn't doctored. They wasn't none of that. You agreed. That's what you said. So I can do nothing but believe of what you said. And again, it was a lot of instances where you were initiating, you wanted to do it, you even said you loved it and all this other stuff. So like I said, when it comes to the SCX encounters, I'm taking that with a grain of salt. And that's just my opinion because, like I said, I understand that things can be what you want and then it turns into something else. And I believe that's what happened to her. I believe that she did like it at first and she was into it at first. And then he wanted her to start doing all this weird stuff. And she's like, no. And then 4 day long, that's a lot. So yeah, she is a victim. But I just don't want it to I don't want it to seem like it was all him, because at the end of the day, people have to take accountability for their actions. And I don't believe that it was just always him, forcing her. I don't believe that. I'm sorry, I don't. That's what I don't believe. I don't believe that it was always him forcing her to do stuff. Sometimes, but not every single time. But domestic violence, I wholeheartedly believe. So, that concludes our episode. Again, I am going to, keep an eye out on everything that's going on this week. I ain't gonna lie, depending on how this week goes, I may or may not, do a little midweek recap or see what's going on, see how y'all feeling, check y'all temperature. especially based off of the reactions that I get from this video. So once again, this has been Let's Chat with Quin. Like, subscribe, share, tell your mama, tell your grandma, tell everybody to get over here and watch what the fuck I gotta say. And throw your own opinion in there. There's a comment box on the bottom for a reason. I do appreciate people's feedback when they do come and watch. So, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, share. See ya.